What's up, guys? Vital Syntax here. I wanted to update you guys on both the progress of the DayZ Standalone development and the development of the DayZ mod and its integration into Arma 3. So first of all, I'm going to have two links in the description of the video that show Arma 3 and DayZ working together in both single player and multiplayer. Multiplayer isn't a Hive connected database server-centered system, though. It's essentially just some people running it off of somebody's computer in a multiplayer mission setup. But it's nice to see the progress of the DayZ mod into Arma 3, and we might even be able to see a playable server run version of DayZ based around Arma 3 before DayZ Standalone comes out, because they're taking a lot of time with the standalone. I'm fine with that, but it's just cool to see that the modding community have been trying to integrate DayZ into Arma 3 and the new engine and stuff, and there's definitely some cool features that will come along with that. At this point, though, it's very glitchy and very buggy, and I wouldn't really recommend most just casual players to try and get it to work. There's some tutorials online, and I found a couple tutorials on Reddit as well, but it's fairly complicated to set up, and even when you do get it set up, it's very buggy and glitchy, and there's a lot of things that don't work, which is as expected because it's very primitive at this point. Anyway, moving on to the main point of this video, I wanted to go over the most recent developer post for DayZ Standalone. They released I think an hour and a half of video on YouTube that went over a lot of the PAX East coverage that they did. They had a panel where they talked about quite a bit of the new game features, and if you think back, PAX East was actually a couple weeks ago, quite a while ago, and I actually already did a video on almost all the stuff they covered in that panel. But after they did the panel, they also did a kind of Q&A while they were signing autographs and taking pictures with some of the more hardcore fans of DayZ, and that part was new. I hadn't seen any of that new information, and there's a lot of questions that some of the fans brought up that Rocket was answering, so I thought I would go over some of those questions that were answered by Rocket. And if you want to see the full kind of post Q&A session that he did, that starts at about, I think, the last 30 minutes of that an hour and a half developer post that they made. So the first question that players were asking is it possible to have dead players become zombies? Not necessarily control the zombies, but their dead body, be reanimated as a zombie and have all their gear on it, which would be a really cool concept. I mean, you could kill a zombie that was once a player and you could pick up all his gear and stuff like that. But they're not going to be able to do this because there's a huge performance issue. Basically, the way it works is that zombies have a single material because they're spawning thousands of them, and it allows it to perform a lot better, have a lot better frame rate, whereas players, since there's less than 100 typically, have a lot of materials. Each different piece of clothing has a different material, so they perform a lot less efficiently. And if they had a lot of players turning into zombies, then there'd be a lot of performance issues. The next question was increasing the grass render distance, and this is something that they do want to work on, but it's not going to be something that they work on for a while because there's a lot of performance issues. But the situation that was brought up was if you see a player in a field and there's no grass rendered near him, then he's really obvious, whereas if he's close up and there's grass rendered near him, they can be fairly well hidden. And this is something that they want to fix, but once again, not going to be in the initial alpha at least. The next topic was in regards to melee weapons, and one of the players was asking if they would implement some type of blocking system and integrate momentum like we had in Mountain Blade / Chivalry to medieval sword-based games. And he said they are working on a blocking system, and they've already captured the animations for adding a blocking mechanic. So I think we can expect that in maybe not the initial alpha, but shortly after. And they also want to add some type of momentum system to make the melee system really enjoyable and fun to use, because it's going to be definitely a big component of the standalone, especially when you compare it to the mod, because there's really very little focus on the melee system in the DayZ mod. The next question was in regards to vehicle damage, and this is something they're working on, is adding the ability for each different part of a vehicle to be damaged individually. So the bumper of your car could get smashed in, or a door could get blown up or shot out. And you'll actually be able to remove different pieces from other vehicles and attach them to your vehicle, so you would end up with this mix match of different colors and different parts from different cars that you've basically just thrown together into this vehicle that you're kind of driving around the world. And that's really cool because it adds a story behind each vehicle that you own, where you might have a door that you got from Kamenka and that reminds you of stories and events that happened there, or you have some windows or some doors or bumpers or something from a different location, and that kind of reminds you of how you got those. So it's something that they're working on implementing, but it won't be addressed until they actually implement vehicles, which is going to be definitely later on down the road. Zombie spawns was the next question, and this is something that they're working on where they're adding a zone around buildings. Essentially, think of an orb or a sphere or a circle that surrounds, for example, Kamenka, and once you enter that circle, zombies don't respawn. So if you kill all the zombies within that city, they don't start respawning until you leave the city, so effectively allowing players to clear different areas, which is definitely something that would be really awesome and something that was kind of frustrating about the mod for DayZ. Next question was in regards to military clothing, and this is something that he addressed, that they're adding a lot of different clothing to the backlog of things that they want to add, and military clothing is definitely something up there, adding like tactical vests, another type of tactical clothing with lots of pockets and things like that. It's kind of a higher end military type of gear, but that's definitely going to be added on later on when they start rolling out more content. The next question was in regards to a skill system, and this is something that they want to add, but make it so it's not just a skill system. They don't want the idea of skills at all in the game, but they want you to get better at things as you do them. So the example he gave is if you repair a bunch of vehicles, you become a mechanic. It wouldn't show up as like mechanic over your head or you have a mechanic icon on your screen, but as you repair vehicles, you become a better mechanic in itself, and that might allow you to be more efficient, use less resources when you're repairing vehicles, or maybe be able to repair them faster and things along those lines. And this is just an example of mechanics. You could also do something like this with a medic, being able to bandage faster or more efficiently with blood bags or something along those lines. The next question was in regards to headlamps and lights around the world, and this is what they have been working on quite a bit, and they already have the ability to mount lights onto basically any object. So you could imagine having a headlamp on your helmet or on your head or on a hat or something like that, so you could see really easily when you're walking around during the nighttime without having to equip a flashlight and pull that out. You could attach it to a tactical vest. You could attach a light to a gun as a tactical light to have it pointing off the end of your gun, or even add like floodlights around the map to kind of give a more ambiance to playing during the nighttime and give a little bit more light, because in the DayZ mod all you really have is the moonlight and there's no real lights based around the map. So this would add some really, really cool effects during night when you go into cities and stuff like that. And also they're working on an electricity system. This would kind of tie into floodlights or lights that were based around cities. And they want to add a full electrical system once they finish the base building system, which is kind of designed to be worked on towards the end of the year. And this would basically allow players to start up a power grid and provide electricity to different cities, or provide electricity to different hideouts or bases that you've built. Next one was in regards to building destruction. They've actually completely disabled and removed the ability to destroy buildings, primarily for a performance increase. And honestly, it didn't really play a huge component in the gameplay of DayZ, so I'd much rather them increase the frame rate than have the ability for destructible buildings, but I could be alone on that. The next question was in regards to non-lethal actions, maybe having the ability to taser enemies or bind their hands, tie them up so they can't attack you, but you're not killing them. And this is something they're also working on that's probably implemented when they fix the ability to drag players around once they're unconscious, which is something that they have to fix with animations and syncing and stuff like that. And then the last question was in regards to shooting out of vehicles, which is definitely something a lot of people have asked for. This is going to be fixed or hopefully worked on once they implement vehicles into the standalone, which is definitely not going to be in the initial release. It might be towards the middle of the year, towards the end of the year, once they start working on implementing and fixing vehicles, because they want to completely rehaul them. They don't want to add vehicles in really primitive and then remove them and then fix them and then add them again. They just want to do it right and then bring them back into the game. And being able to shoot out a vehicle is definitely something they want to do. And another question that was brought up was being able to defecate or poo out of a vehicle, so you could do dust cropping when a helicopter fly over people and shit on their heads. With this, maybe something they could add, but even defecation itself isn't something that they've necessarily 100% confirmed they're going to be doing in the game. Although they record animations and stuff for it already, which is definitely probably really fun to do. But anyway, that wraps up my summary for the latest developer post from PAX East in regards to DayZ Standalone. I'll make sure to do any more summaries like this if there's more information released about the game. But if you guys enjoyed the video or found it informative, feel free to give me a like or a favorite, or share the video with any other DayZ players you know. But thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.